I do not perceive my own best interests. 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 In the situation involving blank, I would like blank to happen. And what else would you like to happen? And blank to happen. And blank to happen. Now, why don't you fill in the blanks? I do not perceive my own best interests. I do not perceive my own best interests. Now you do one. In the situation involving, I would like to happen. And to happen. And to happen. I do not perceive my own best interests in this situation. Now do another one. In the situation involving, I would like to happen. And to happen. And to happen. I do not perceive my own best interests in this situation. Let's do another one. In the situation involving, you filled in, I would like to happen. And to happen. And to happen. When I hum it, you fill it in. I do not perceive my own best interests in this situation. Let's do another one or two. In the situation involving, I would like to happen. And to happen. And to happen. I do not perceive my own best interests in this situation. I do not perceive my own best interests. I do not perceive my own best interests. I do not perceive my own best interests. Well, thank you all so much for joining me here on the banks of, what is this, West Fork? Probably West Fork of the White River. I'm down here in Arkansas, right in the little town of West Fork, here at the city park. Nice bluffs behind me. Thought it'd be a nice place to do my recording for you. We're ready for lesson 24 for Saturday, January the 24th of 2026. And I'm recording this on I believe today's a Wednesday. I do not perceive my own best interests for Friday, January 24th of 2026. I said Friday. It's not Friday. It's for Saturday. I do not perceive my own best interests. In no situation that arises do you realize the outcome that would make you happy. Therefore, you have no guide to appropriate action and no way of judging the result. What you do is determined by your perception of the situation, and that perception is wrong. It is inevitable, then, that you will not serve your own best interests. Yet they are your only goal in any situation which is correctly perceived. Otherwise, you will not recognize what they are. If you realize that you do not perceive your own best interests, you could be taught what they are. But in the presence of your conviction that you do know what they are, you cannot learn. The idea for today is a step toward opening your mind so that learning can begin. Remember lesson 1, I do not know what anything means? Well, that's an idea that we want to maintain permanently, that we have that open mind of not knowing what things mean, because then we can be shown. The exercises for today require much more honesty than you are accustomed to using. A few subjects honestly and carefully considered in each of the 5 practice periods which should be undertaken today will be more helpful than a mere cursory examination of a large number. So he wants us to do this 5 times today. 2 minutes are suggested for each of the mind-searching periods which the exercises involve. The practice period should begin with repeating today's idea, followed by searching the mind with closed eyes for unresolved situations about which you are currently concerned. The emphasis should be on uncovering the outcome you want. You will quickly realize that you have a number of goals in mind as part of the desired outcome, and also that these goals are on different levels and often conflict. In applying the idea for today, name each situation that occurs to you, and then enumerate carefully as many goals as possible that you would like to be met in its resolution. The form of each application should be roughly as follows. In the situation involving blank, I would like blank to happen and blank to happen. And if there's more than 2 or 3, name them all, and so on. Try to cover as many different kinds of outcomes as may honestly occur to you, even if some of them do not appear to be directly related to the situation or to even be inherent in it at all. If these exercises are done properly, you will quickly recognize that you are making a large number of demands of the situation which have nothing to do with it. You will also recognize that many of your goals are contradictory, that you have no unified outcome in mind, and that you must experience disappointment in connection with some of your goals, however the situation turns out. After covering the list of as many hoped-for goals as possible for each unresolved situation that crosses your mind, say to yourself, I do not perceive my own best interests in this situation, and go on to the next one. And I'll tell you where I've kind of come to through the years. It kind of snuck up on me. It wasn't like a major revelation, but I just started noticing it was just the way I think as I've been doing my lessons for these many years, is that I don't so much ask for specifics anymore, because I know that I'll always be cared for. Now, I do think that we need to visualize what we want. So I think that it's important to pray, but have that prayer always be kind of surrounded with the understanding that we really don't know what's best for us, but that we know that the Holy Spirit, our guide in this world, knows exactly what we need, and that if we'll visualize it, it'll happen as it's to happen. It may be exactly the way we visualize, but what I'm trying to say is be open-minded, that if something better comes to you, recognize that you're always loved and cared for, and your prayers are always answered. Okay, so we want to have a real open mind is the idea for today. I do not perceive my own best interests. Okay, let's go take a look in our text reading for today. And we're in chapter 3, the innocent perception, and Roman numeral 3, perception versus knowledge. We have been emphasizing perception. Of course, that's what our whole lesson today is about. I do not perceive my own best interests. This is all referring to the land of perception, the world. We have been emphasizing perception and have said very little about knowledge as yet. This is because perception must be straightened out before you can know anything. In other words, if you have your perception so out of sorts with reality, you won't be able to get the message of what reality wants to tell you, because you'll be fixated on things that are not real. A perception that where you feel vulnerable in essence. To know is to be certain. Uncertainty means that you do not know. Knowledge is power because it is certain, and certainty is strength. Perception is temporary. As an attribute of the belief in space and time, it is subject to neither fear or love. Misperception produces fear, and true perception fosters love. But neither brings certainty, because all perception varies. That is why it is not knowledge. True perception is the basis for knowledge, but knowing is the affirmation of truth and beyond all perception. Paragraph 2. All your difficulties stem from the fact that you do not recognize yourself, your brother, or God. Wow, catch that. All your difficulties stem from the fact that you do not recognize yourself, your brother, or God. To recognize means to know again, to recognize, to know again. To recognize means to know again, implying that you knew before. You can see in many ways because perception involves interpretation, and this means that it is not whole or consistent. The miracle, being a way of perceiving, is not knowledge. It is the right answer to a question, but you do not question when you know. Questioning illusions is the first step in undoing them. The miracle, or the right answer, corrects them. Since perceptions change, their dependence on time is obvious. How you perceive at any given time determines what you do, and actions must occur in time. Knowledge is timeless, because certainty is not questionable. You know when you have ceased to ask questions. You know when you cease to ask questions. The questioning mind perceives itself in time and therefore looks for future answers. The closed mind believes the future and the present will be the same. This establishes a seemingly stable state that is usually an attempt to counteract an underlying fear that the future will be worse than the present. This fear inhibits the tendency to question at all. Paragraph 4. True vision is the natural perception of spiritual sight. True vision is the natural perception of spiritual sight, but it is still a correction rather than a fact. Spiritual sight is symbolic and therefore not a device for knowing. It is, however, a means of right perception, which brings it into the proper domain of the miracle. A vision of God, would be a miracle rather than a revelation. A vision of God would be a miracle rather than a revelation. The fact that perception is involved at all removes the experience from the realm of knowledge. That is why visions, however holy, do not last. Paragraph 5. The Bible tells you to know yourself or to be certain. And I'm not sure exactly what he's referring to, but some passages that kind of allude to that idea. 1 Corinthians 13:12, Romans 12:3, and Psalms 139, 23, and 24. You can look at those. Those kind of point in that direction. The Bible tells you to know yourself or to be certain. Certainty is always of God. When you love someone, you have perceived him as he is, and this makes it possible for you to know him. Until you first perceive him as he is, you cannot know him. While you ask questions about him, you're clearly implying that you do not know God. Certainty does not require action. When you say you're acting on the basis of knowledge, you're really confusing knowledge with perception. Knowledge provides the strength for creative thinking, but not for right doing. Perception, miracles, and doing are closely related. Knowledge is the result of revelation and induces only thought. Even in its most spiritualized form, perception involves the body. Knowledge comes from the altar within and is timeless because it is certain. To perceive the truth is not the same as to know the truth. Paragraph 6. Right perception is necessary before God can communicate directly to his altars, which he established in his sons. Okay, each of us has an altar within us where God communicates. Right perception is necessary before God can communicate directly to his altars, which he established in his sons. There he can communicate his certainty, and his knowledge will bring peace without question. God is not a stranger to his sons, and his sons are not strangers to each other. Knowledge preceded both perception and time, and will ultimately replace them. That is the real meaning of Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. And before Abraham was, I am. And you can find that Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, in Revelations 1:8, Revelations 21:6, and Revelations 22:13. And I'll put all these in the description at the end. I try to do that every time, so you don't have to go back and write them down right now, though it might be worthwhile to take notes as you're hearing things. And then before Abraham was, I am, was a quote that was in John chapter 8, verse 58, when Jesus was talking about himself. Before Abraham was, I am. Perception can and must be stabilized, but knowledge is stable. Fear God and keep his commandments becomes know God and accept his certainty. And of course, that's a quote out of Ecclesiastes 12 and verse 13. Fear God and keep his commandments becomes know God and accept his certainty. And the last paragraph, 7. If you attack error in another, you will hurt yourself. You cannot know your brother when you attack him. Attack is always made upon a stranger. You are making him a stranger by misperceiving him, and so you cannot know him. It is because you have made him a stranger that you are afraid of him. Perceive him correctly so that you can know him. There are no strangers in God's creation. To create as he created, you can create only what you know, and therefore accept as yours. God knows his children with perfect certainty. He created them by knowing them. He recognizes them perfectly. When they do not recognize each other, they do not recognize Him. That's why our perception has to be straightened out so that we can recognize that each other are part of ourself, part of God, who we're part of. And then once our perceptions are straightened out at least a little bit, then we can begin to hear the voice for God in our altar, in our own heart. Okay? I've explained it a lot of times as the good example is if you're trying to transfer from one thing to another, you have to both be going at the same speed, like for two airplanes. If you want to put fuel from one to the other, they have to logically, obviously, have to be going the same speed and the same altitude. Well, that's the world of perception. Get as close as you can to the love of God in your day-to-day life so that you can hear God's inner voice that's pure love. Then you'll have knowledge. Okay, let's see. I do not perceive my own best interest is our lesson for today. Let's see what's going on. And I haven't been saying every day what to read. I am putting it in the description below. So if you're a multiple year student and you're following along out of the original edition, today read chapter 3, paragraph 38 through 50. Which is conflict and the ego. In the Bible, read Matthew chapter 24, the end times chapter. In Iyengar Yoga, read page 38. And out of A Course of Love, read chapter 5, paragraph 19 through 26. I think 19 through 26. And then what's going on around the world? It's St. Francis de Sales Day, Catholic feast day. In your Hindu celebration, it's Griya Pravesh, which is blessing the home day. In Zoroastrianism, it's the victory of light over darkness day, which is called Sada Kermani. And then it's also this week is still the Christian week of prayer for unity. Kind of change that a little bit. It's actually the week of prayer for Christian unity, but I like it better. It's the Christian week of prayer for unity, since so many Christians need to learn to have to see their brothers as themselves. A lot of times they think that if they don't believe in Jesus, they're not their brother, which is not what Jesus wanted us to learn. I want to make sure we make that really clear. Beer can Appreciation Day. I found most of these on holidays and observances, by the way. Belly Laugh Day. Put out a really good laugh. Capitol Hill Day. Change a Pet's Life Day. Mobile Phone Recycling Day. Local Quilt Shop Day. Or visit a local quilt shop day, either one. Macintosh Computer Day. Do we even still use Macintosh computers? I think it changed to Apple, hadn't it? Compliment Day. Always good to give a compliment. And I wanted to thank you all for joining me. I compliment you for making it to lesson 24 already. Just Do It Day. Sometimes you just got to say, I'm not getting it done, and I wanted to get it done, so just do it. Lobster Thermidor Day. Matthew Day. I don't usually say people's names day, but since we're reading through the Bible, it's Matthew Day. He was a tax collector that ended up following Jesus. And back in those days, tax collectors were kind of ornery. Peanut Butter Day. Paul Pitcher Day. Talk Like a Grizzled Prospector Day. And Kentucky Wonder Bush Bean out of Seed Savers Exchange. Phaseolus vulgaris. We talked about the Kentucky Wonder pole bean yesterday. I'm thinking I'm going to grow some bush beans also. Kentucky Wonder Bush. If you're looking for the same fine attributes of the Kentucky Wonder pole bean, only in a bush habit, this bean is for you. Also known as Improved Commodore, this variety is a standard for the home and market gardener and produces heavy yields over an extended growing season. Tender, stringless, plump, flesh 8-inch pods, have excellent flavor, bush habit, and it's a snap bean, 65 days to maturity, and 900 seeds to the ounce. So they're a little smaller seed, or a little bigger seed than the Kentucky Wonder pole bean. which had 1,200, didn't it say, to the ounce? Or was that to the pound? I shouldn't take the time to look because I want to sing our song, but let's look again. I'd already closed it. To the pound, 1,200 to the Kentucky Wonder pole bean is 1,200 seeds to the pound, and for the and they're 900 seeds to the pound for the bush bean, the Kentucky Wonder. Okay, and our word for peace, we're going to take it from our Italian brothers and sisters, which is pax. Pax be with you. Now let's try to do one of your 2-minute practice periods as we sing. Try to think of something, a situation. I do not perceive my own best interests. I do not perceive my own best interests. In the situation involving, I would like to happen. And to happen. And to happen. I do not perceive my own best interests in this situation. In the situation involving, I would like to happen. And to happen. And to happen. I do not perceive my own best interests in this situation. In the situation involving, I do not perceive my own best interests in this situation. Let's do another one. In the situation involving, I do not perceive my own best interest in this situation. I do not perceive my own best interest. I do not perceive my own best interest. Okay, hopefully you did one or two there. We went through it a few times. I do not perceive my own best interest. Try to do that 5 times today. Maybe you did 2 of them with me today. Do at least 3 more if you did. And our word for peace is pax from Italian. I do not perceive my own best interests. Pax.